Okay, we have a potential change of the guard coming up. For sure, we're getting rid of Joe Biden. But will we have Kamala Harris, RFK Jr., or Donald Trump? To go through some of the biggest stories in the news today, I have a special guest with me, Robert Harward. Bob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Stephen. It's great to be with you. And I'm taken by your phrase, getting rid of Joe Biden, which implies you weren't a fan of his. What I'm more focused on is the policies that come with either administrations. And I have not been a fan of the policies of the current administration, and in fact, for a while. So I think that change of guard realizes the opportunity and the reality with any change in administrations will adapt different policies.
Yeah, they're going to have to. So, yeah, I'm very clear on my channel. Not a big fan of Joseph Robinette Biden. I've been doing YouTube for about 15 years and really had success in the last 4 or 5. And I tried to cover the news as center as I could, but honestly, after the Afghanistan withdrawal, I started to bitter on Joe Biden pretty heavily. And then from there, it just for me got worse. So we'll go through some of that as we jump in. Just for some background for my audience, you are a retired admiral for the Navy SEAL, former deputy commander of Central Command. So you've seen the whole world. You've seen battle. You've seen downtimes. You've seen so much. I want to jump into this idea of the changing of the guard. I keep seeing in the news people asking who's really running the country, because it does not appear to be Joe Biden. Now I see that Vice President Kamala Harris is being briefed on the Russia-Ukraine war as well as the Israel-Gaza situation. How dangerous is it for Biden, who they say has, mental difficulties, memory issues, energy issues, to be commander in chief, have the nuclear football? And do you think, from what you've seen, are other global leaders going to see Kamala Harris as a good wartime leader or a good diplomat?
Well, let's go back a little broader here, Stephen, and some of what you've talked about over 15 years. And I was fortunate to serve some time on the Bush administration, Bush 43, when I came out of Iraq. And I noticed that a lot of his team were some of the same team members and backing and work that had come from his father's administration. And I think you're seeing this now to the current Biden administration. And to your point, that this is somewhat an extension of the team that President Obama had. I worked with them closely in my role as deputy at CENTCOM. And so a lot of those teams who shaped policy and decisions under the Obama administration are the same players who's shaping and forming this Biden administration. And you can see consistency in those policies, which I think have precipitated some of the situation we're in now. But back to the current president, it's that team that helps supports the president to hopefully make those right decisions. Uh, and I've been concerned with the team all along and their policies, not just the leader, be it President Biden or now Vice President Kamala, but the fact that she's just now getting briefed up on some of these things is indicative of the chasm in that team between the president and vice president and what they knew and what they tracked and worked on. Were they separated? Did they keep shared situational awareness? Were you always prepping the vice president to take that helm should it happen? If you look back at some of our administrations, I always look to Bush 41. We could not have had a better selection for president in terms of experience. It's as if his career path was predicated to enable him as the president. He was a war hero. He was successful in business. He became a congressman. He served as ambassador to China, head of the CIA, and vice president. So when he assumed the role of president, he had that experience. He had that knowledge of what each of those agencies did, and that helped shape his decision-making process. I think that's one of the most significant shortfalls in Kamala Harris, because she had none of those backgrounds, had that experience. And you could track your own record of how she succeeded or what she contributed as vice president. So I think a lot of people are concerned with her at the helm and her experience base to guide this country and establish policies that will serve us all well.
Yeah. I've just been reading a book, and it was talking about George Bush Sr. and George Bush Jr. basically, and how 41 was trying to guide his son where he could, but one of the areas that I guess they kind of bumped heads was over Donald Rumsfeld. 41 wanted him removed, and 43 was like, no, we're keeping him in. I'm the president now. So anyway, just kind of an interesting side story.
Listen, Stephen, I lived through that. I worked with Secretary Rumsfeld. I worked with the president, and I can tell you one thing. Bush 43 was a smart cookie. We ran principals committees, deputies committees, where a lot of the Rumsfeld included had missed things that the president picked up on. But you're exactly right. And Rumsfeld was a very strong personality, a very forceful. Some would almost call him a bully, especially in today's light. I'm sure he would view that way. But I think President Bush 43 realized the experience he had, the knowledge, and I think he agreed with them on policies positions. So there was some tension in that team. And all the shortfalls, it's still some of that experience stuff that came from Bush 41, and that experience of that team served President Bush 43 very well, even though occasionally the presidents, the son and father presidents, did butt heads every now and then. But for most of the case, it was a very loving relationship. I think President Bush 43 really was successful to some extent because of all that experience and knowledge he gleaned from his father and that somewhat continuation of the team, as opposed to where we are now, where I think that extension of that team from the Obama administration into the Biden administration has somewhat led to the situation we're facing today.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. As someone who served in the military for many decades, is it concerning to you that President Biden and President Vladimir Putin of Russia haven't had communication with each other in almost 18 months? I mean, even during the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis, we've learned that President John F. Kennedy was having discussions with the president of Russia to keep things cool and not let this thing escalate into two nuclear powers coming after each other. Any thoughts on this lack of communication going on with this administration?
I think more communication is always better understanding. And even if it's confrontation, that can be healthy in and of itself, to understand where each other's positions are, where you can give and take, and that personal relationships or the ability of those senior leaders to engage, I think is imperative to forming policies and strategy that is going to move us forward. And I think that lack of communications does not serve you well, can almost be counterproductive.
Yeah. I remember about a year or so ago, there was a lot of complaint from the White House and the Biden administration that their counterparts in China weren't communicating, weren't picking up the phone as this Taiwan situation became more strained. And yet I have to think maybe Russia is feeling the same way. Like, hey, why isn't America trying to do diplomacy? Why are we being backed into a corner? I don't know. I don't have the military background, but just as a concerned citizen, I just think, like you said, more communication, even if it's disagreement, I don't believe is going to lead to a war, but maybe not communicating could, because neither party fully understands what the other is actually trying to accomplish.
Well, Stephen, you can look at it another way also. How much are our adversaries communicating with each other? I would say Russia signing this accord with North Korea, their collaboration with Iran, China's relationship with Russia. I would tell you all of that dialogue is going on heavy and strong, indicating their ability to seize opportunities and make the most out of it. And that's one of those things that goes back to why that lack of communications can be so counterproductive.
Yeah. What was your reaction when you saw the Afghanistan withdrawal? It kind of began with this what seemed like abandonment of Bagram Air Force Base and a fallback. And then it was like the decision was made, let's get out, we'll celebrate on September 11th and be done. And then all of a sudden, boom, things got really bad. Next thing you know, people are falling out of airplanes. I mean, what was your reaction as somebody, connected to the military?
Well, I was appalled for a lot of different reasons, starting with one, tactically and operationally, how it occurred and the result in people being killed. And I don't think we've had the right accountability for that at the end of the day. So I was appalled by that. I think I was also appalled by what it meant for policy and a misunderstanding of what Afghanistan represented. And a lot of people referring to it as these endless wars. Well, at that point, I saw it more as forward presence. If you look at our policy, the United States has been able to dictate the world order for the last 8 decades. And two of the primary components of that was our ability to project power and forward presence. And that was one of the most disturbing policy statements the Obama administration made and the Biden administration adhered to when they first came into the office was, we're going to pivot to the Pacific. And what that really meant, we were going to abandon the region. We had our own oil. We didn't need their oil. We didn't have to do it. We weren't going to lose any troops. We didn't need that. It's for us to bring everyone home. And when we did that, we sacrificed that moral and physical opportunities to our adversaries who seized on it very quickly. And so I was appalled for all those reasons and still believe forward presence where we remain U.S. troops, embassy, other elements of military, economic, and financial power is what allowed us to dictate the world order. I think Russia and China are looking forward to defining it in their terms, and they're going to fill those voids very quickly. And so that's what the pullout of Afghanistan. And if you remember before that, the pullout of Iraq, both of them led by the same individual. At the time, it was the CENTCOM commander in Iraq, who then became Secretary of Defense in Afghanistan. But both of those were a direct correlation and after effect of this pivot to the Pacific and abandon the region of the Middle East. And while it may not be essential to us, it is essential to our allies. And so we lost a lot of trust and confidence from our allies in doing those things. So yeah, I was appalled, Stephen.
Okay. Yeah. You bring up a really good point. Like I've been focused on the fact that Biden and Putin aren't communicating, but I think you really hit an important message that look how much Putin is communicating with Xi Jinping of China or Kim Jong-un of North Korea. Even India is like, well, we don't really like the war, but we love your oil. And so they're willing to kind of look to the side in order to keep their economies affordable and moving forward. But yeah, I agree with you. They would love not only to unseat the United States as a global power, but to fill that vacuum as the global partners that they are becoming.
Not hope to, they're doing it.
Yeah.
China's building ports, buying ports around the world. They're deploying over. They're outbuilding us in the Navy. They're establishing bases. They're economically investing in Africa and around the globe. The Russians are now deploying to Cuba in our waterways and others. They're not, it's not a hope. They are doing it. It's happening as we watch.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good point. What was your reaction to seeing or hearing former President Donald Trump have this assassination attempt on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania?
Unbelievable. Someone was able to shoot the President of the United States. And I call him President of the United States because he was the president. He deserves that title. And he may be again, he's running. But to have someone be able to shoot the President of the United States, either previous or is unbelievable. It was a failure in every way possibly. Tactically, operationally, and strategic, the planning, the coordination, the events after the strike. So we just can't allow that to happen. The whole organization and structure is built with that core mission and principle. If someone shoots and he got shot, thank God it didn't kill him, it hit his ear. Someone shot a novice 20, I think he's 20-year-old kid, shot the President of the United States. That says it all. A total failure in the mission and purpose of that organization.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you were kind of alluding to this. It's like it's a symbolic thing as well. Like the fact that somebody that high up could be hit by somebody that low down. I don't like Joe Biden's and his policies, right? But if I had to report on him being shot in the head or an attempt on his life, that would not bring me any joy. That is mission critical to keep these men and women safe, not only from an optics perspective, but just from human decency. I do wonder what the reaction was of some of the global leaders. I have to imagine many of them were horrified because they don't want that to happen to them either. But I don't know. I don't know what our enemies thought.
I would think anyone would be horrified that someone can shoot another person in a public venue for any reason. That's a horrible event anywhere. I don't care if you're just Joe Schmuckatelli and someone can shoot you in the street. Anyone should be horrified for that. But what was really tragic about this, we have a large organization that we fund with a lot of money to protect the President of the United States, both current and previous. It failed that mission. So one, it indicates there's something not wrong with our systems and processes, and it's another mark against us as a country. How will we perform our roles and missions of our most premier units? So yeah, it does no one any good in any way possible.
Yeah. You've got a book out, The Gouge. I have been going through it and very, very insightful, just decades of wisdom that you've distilled down into these pages. Why did you write The Gouge, and what's my audience going to learn by reading it?
Well, Stephen, thank you. I wrote it for a lot of different reasons. One, to pay back to all the people who were so good to me and took care of my life and my career, and to share that culture. The term came out of World War II when we were going to war. My father was a young kid from Brooklyn, sent out to serve on a ship without much experience in the Pacific. They had a tight-knit crew. And to keep everyone alive and take care of the ship, they shared everything with each other. They invested in each other. They trained each other because they didn't know any day they could be hit with a kamikaze, killing everyone on the bridge. And the lowest seamen and sailors may be running the ship. So it was incumbent for the well-being of all to invest in each other, train each other, and educate each other. And the term they came out with was the gouge. And so And if you ask a naval officer or anyone in the Navy now, or you Google it, it says the inside information, that scoop you need to be smarter than the, and that's true. But more importantly, it's that culture of ensuring the people you work for and with are prepared to do their jobs and they grow professionally. So going back to this, and I think a great example might be the case you mentioned, that if we're just now preparing Kamala Harris on Russia and Ukraine. Why wasn't that happening 3 years ago? Because she is one heartbeat away from the president. So I hope from day one they're preparing, training, and educating her to succeed in case someone had shot Biden, because she'd be carrying the ball that day. So that's the same thing I want to inculcate with the book, reinforce it in the military, how important it is to take care of each other, educate and train each other, and how it's important to any team or organization. Lastly, I would just add, it really was payback for all the people who took such good care of me. I had 26 different jobs, everyone for a year or two, and I went in there not knowing it, not understanding. But thank God I had teams and people who were motivated, wanted to accomplish the mission, and knew what they were doing. So if I listened to them, I understood what they were doing, and I could support them to accomplish our mission. It made us successful. But more importantly, educate and prepare them, because in 2 or 4 years, they'd probably be in my job. And so I think for any organization, team, uh, business, I think that's a critical component of your culture, your leadership. And I want people to understand that. And then finally, uh, we lost a little over 6,000 people since we went to war on 9/11. And each of them was tragic. But worse than that was the 125,000 suicides we've had ever since. And I think the part of the book is, hey, there's a future here. Your job, you may be tough right now going, but someone believes in you. We're going to invest in you. Don't choose that option. So if I can help inculcate those sort of cultures that takes care of people's and can alleviate or detract some of these young service members and even our veteran service members who have a tough transition from choosing that option, then it's a win-win across the board, Stephen.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's great. You have a chapter in there that I wanted to just highlight with my audience. The title of the chapter is "Your Most Important Bank Account is Yourself." What's that chapter about, and what do you mean by that?
Well, I always kid everyone I talk to, Stephen, who loves you the most?
Probably me.
Exactly. Well, probably there's the problem. Hell yes, it should be you.
Yeah.
Now, your mom, your dad, your wife, your kids probably do love you a lot more than you do, but you're responsible for you. And that goes in a lot of different ways: physically, uh, emotionally, and mentally. And so you've got to believe in yourself. And all of us have these little doubts in our mind. Well, this and that. And some people are, worried about the guilt or the regret. And those are great considerations to make a decision. But once you've made that decision, move forward. Don't let guilt override you. Use that to shape future decisions. Don't let it erode from the course you've set and move on. And so the other components I think of that is also, look, take care of yourself. I've got kids right now. I've been working for 3 years, and we're in a tough business right now, developing this business, and they're working 20-hour days. They're not taking sleep. They're not taking care. I say, hey, guys, stop. Take care of yourself. You're going to be around this planet 60, 70, 80 years, and the doctors are all doing their parts. You got to do your part to, don't drink a lot, don't smoke, go get exercise, get right up here, take care of yourself. It's the most important bank account you have in the world. Now, don't get me wrong. Money is like air. You need it to live, but you can live a pretty basic level, and get your needs met. But more importantly, if you're not okay, uh, it's not going to be a pleasant ride. So take care of yourself, invest in yourself, understand how important you are to yourself and others around you, and appreciate that for you have. Love yourself, take care of yourself, invest in it, and go for it. And that's why I do 1 or 2 hours a day of PT every day, because it keeps all my parts working. It clears my mind from all the other crap that's going on in it. But invest in yourself, take care of yourself. That's got to be first and foremost, because that allows you to take care of everyone else around you and meet the responsibilities you have.
Yeah, no, that's why that chapter jumped out at me, because in my personal life, I subscribe to all of that. In fact, I have a sticky note right here. I don't know if the camera can pick up on it. Let's see.
I
No,
am
it
my
says, I am my greatest asset.
That's the gouge.
Yeah.
That is epitomized the gouge. And I think everyone, hell, get that tattooed on your arm instead of the oak leaf or because that is what makes us all happen. You'll be better for it. The country and everyone around you will be better for it. So take care of yourself. But that's the gouge, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, there's a great story with Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines, and I think it's the one of the other chief operating officers comes to him and says, what if we invest all this money in training our employees and they leave? And he says, what if we don't invest anything in them and they stay? And so just go ahead.
Perfect. Because they're going to be better somewhere. This is my going back to your thanks for your service. Again, I'm almost embarrassed because it's the greatest adventure and we're having hard time. The services are having a hard time right now finding people. My philosophy is okay, they smoked pot once. They had the DUI. Oh, get them in. The day they put on their uniform, they're a different person, and it's better for the country. Now make them compete. Bring them in and say, hey, you're going to get 2 years to prove yourself. If you don't, you're gone. But they're a better people. And even if that 2 years they leave, they're going to be better for someone else, for this country, for business. So any investment the military or anyone makes in people like Branson did, that it's going to pay dividends to someone and all of us in the end. And that's the real gouge. You can never stop. And we're all in the HR business. We're all in the people. Invest in each other as much as you can. And for leaders, you have to be, as you talked about, that communication. You have to be a proactive, persistent, and consistent communicator to help your people grow and prosper, not only for your business or the mission, but for them personally, because that's going to happen again sometime in their journey. So, Steve, you understand the gouge better than I do.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. I said this off air, but I just wanted to publicly acknowledge, thank you so much for all of your service. America doesn't realize that we all sleep soundly because somebody's taking a post. Somebody is awake, keeping our borders safe, and the world is as safe as they can. We'll see, if Kamala ends up in, or if Donald Trump ends up in. I think they will lead the country in two totally different manners. So we'll see what happens in November. But thank you again for all of your service. Admiral, I'm going to put a link to your book down below so that people can check that out. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Stephen, thank you. A real pleasure. I just enjoyed meeting you and talking to you. Anything I can ever do for you, don't hesitate to yell, but thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.